My name is Natasha Ulibari, and I'm 29 years old. I'm a social worker. I work with kids in the foster care system, and before taxes, I make $55,200 a year. That means I drive a 2017 Civic, rent a decent one-bedroom apartment, and when I want to spoil myself, I order large popcorn at the movies instead of medium. I'm not rich. I've never pretended to be. I picked this career because when I was 11, my younger sister spent 8 months in foster care after our mom had a breakdown. The social worker assigned to her case was the first adult who looked at my sister like she wasn't broken. I remember standing in courthouse hallways, watching that woman kneel down, talk softly, explain things, and make terrifying situations feel survivable. That stayed with me. So no, I didn't choose this work for money. I chose it because sometimes one adult changes everything. My boyfriend, Gavin Mercer, apparently had a different relationship with the idea of success. We'd been together 14 months. He was 27, worked in pharmaceutical sales, and probably made almost double what I did. That never bothered me. Honestly, I liked that we were different. He was outgoing. I was quieter. He loved expensive restaurants. I loved takeout and movies at home. His family, though, different universe. His father, Daniel, was a retired orthopedic surgeon. His mother, Cynthia, had never worked outside the home and treated social hierarchy like an Olympic sport. His older sister married a finance guy. His younger brother was in law school. I was the only person in their orbit whose job involved emergency placements at 2 in the morning. I'd met his parents twice. Coffee once, lunch once. His mom had that polished smile that somehow still felt judgmental. His dad seemed normal. Then, 3 weeks ago, Gavin told me his parents wanted to invite us over for a proper family dinner. He said proper the way people say final interview. I agreed. 2 days before dinner, I got a text message that changed how I saw him. Hey, so my mom kept asking questions, and I might have told her you work in healthcare administration and make around $200K. Don't correct them at dinner, lol. I'll explain later. I reread it 4 times. Not because I misunderstood, because I hoped I had. I texted back immediately. What? His reply came fast. It's not a big deal. Just go with it. I called him. Why would you tell them that? He sighed. Because my mom compares everyone. My sister's husband works in finance. My brother's going into law. I didn't want to deal with her comments. So you lied? I exaggerated. I laughed once. Gavin, 55,000 to 200,000 isn't exaggerating. That's creating an entirely different woman. He got quiet. Then, can you just do this for me? One dinner. That part stuck with me. Not do this together. Do this for me. I barely slept Thursday night. Friday wasn't much better. Being distracted isn't ideal when your job involves children in crisis. Saturday came too fast. I wore black trousers, a navy blouse, and silver earrings my sister gave me years ago. Gavin met me outside his parents' house. He looked nervous. Please, he whispered before we went inside. Don't make this weird. I stared at him. You already made it weird. His parents' house looked like one of those places where nobody actually sits on the furniture. Formal dining room, crystal glasses, multiple forks, centerpiece bigger than my coffee table. Cynthia greeted me warmly, which somehow made me more nervous. Dinner started harmlessly. Weather, vacation stories, kitchen renovations. Then Cynthia smiled across the table. So, Natasha, she said, swirling wine in her glass. Healthcare administration sounds fascinating. Gavin says you're doing exceptionally well. Under the table, Gavin's hand clamped onto my knee. I looked at him, then at her. Then I smiled. Actually, I'm a social worker. Silence. I work with children in foster care placements, court coordination, case management, emergency removals when necessary. And I make about $55,000 a year. Gavin's hand disappeared from my knee instantly. Cynthia froze. Not angry, not confused, frozen. She looked slowly toward her son. He suddenly became very interested in his potatoes. Then Daniel leaned forward. You work with foster kids? Yes, sir. How'd you get into that? So I told him. About my sister, about foster care, about a teenager on my caseload who'd finally been placed after years of instability, about driving kids myself when they were scared because sometimes the last thing they needed was another stranger. Daniel listened carefully, then he set his fork down. I respect that more than any salary. The room went quiet again. He continued. I spent 30 years fixing shoulders and knees. You're helping repair lives before they break permanently. Something in my chest loosened. Cynthia blinked rapidly. Well, she said finally, that's noble. Noble, like she was complimenting volunteer work at a bake sale. Gavin barely spoke after that. His father did. For almost an hour. He asked about burnout, about the foster system, about what kids needed most. He actually listened. Meanwhile, Cynthia disappeared to the kitchen twice and returned looking increasingly uncomfortable. The ride to my car afterward lasted 30 seconds. The argument lasted 20 minutes. I can't believe you did that, Gavin snapped. Did what? You embarrass me. I stared at him. You lied about my entire life. You could have gone along with it for one night. One night? I asked. Then what? Christmas, birthdays, family vacations? Do I spend 3 years pretending I'm a healthcare executive? You made me look stupid. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. His expression changed. Not guilt. Anger. Like honesty had betrayed him. I drove home feeling strange. Not sad. Not yet. Just disappointed. The next morning, my phone buzzed. I think we need a break. I stared at it for 30 seconds, then typed, I think we need a breakup. 3 hours later, are you seriously doing this? I replied, I'm not staying with someone who's ashamed of who I actually am. At that moment, I thought the relationship was over. I had no idea his family was only getting started. I expected silence after the breakup. That's how my previous relationships ended. Someone says it's over. There's an awkward exchange of belongings. Maybe a few sad playlists. Then everyone quietly disappears. Gavin's family apparently treated boundaries like optional suggestions. Day 1, nothing happened. Day 2, I got a text from him so long I had to scroll twice. He said I publicly humiliated him. He said I chose my pride over our relationship. He said I punished him for trying to protect me from his mother's judgment. Protect me. That word kept irritating me. Because creating a fictional version of your girlfriend isn't protection. It's editing, I never replied. Working in social services teaches you something important. When people rewrite reality, arguing with them usually just gives them more material. Day 3 got stranger. His older sister called me. Her name was Vanessa. I'd met her maybe 4 times. She had expensive taste, perfect hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from never worrying about rent. I answered because I assumed it was about exchanging Gavin's stuff. Hey, Natasha, she said carefully. I wanted to talk about dinner. Okay, I think you really hurt my brother. I almost laughed. Your brother told his parents I made $200,000. Right, and obviously that wasn't ideal. Wasn't ideal? Pause. Then she tried again. My mom puts pressure on everyone. Gavin was just trying to make things easier. For who? For everyone. Including me? Silence. She exhaled dramatically. You have to understand how our family works. There it was. The sentence people use when dysfunction has been around long enough to become tradition. I understand perfectly, I said. Your family expected me to participate in a lie because honesty was inconvenient. You're being rigid. You're being comfortable. That one landed. She got quiet. Then, sometimes relationships require compromise. Compromise isn't pretending I'm an entirely different person. We hung up 2 minutes later. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. Day 5. Unknown number. I answered because sometimes courts, schools, or agencies call from numbers I don't recognize. Hello, Natasha, a woman said warmly. too warmly. "This is Cynthia." My stomach dropped. My ex-boyfriend's mother had my number, which meant Gavin gave it to her after we broke up. "I just wanted to clear up misunderstandings," she continued. "Gavin cares about you very much." I stayed quiet. Saturday night was unfortunate. There were nerves involved. "Your son told you I made 4 times my salary and worked in a different field." "Well," she laughed softly, "he may have embellished. People really love small words for giant problems. He invented an entirely different career." "I think what matters," she continued smoothly, "is that you clearly have a good heart." I recognized the tactic instantly. Minimize, redirect, control. Parents in family court did it constantly. "I appreciate the call," I said, "but we broke up. I just think mature adults work through things. We tried." Long pause. Then her voice changed slightly. "I hope this isn't about insecurity." My eyebrows lifted. "Insecurity?" "My son is successful. You're both in different income brackets. Sometimes men and women struggle with that." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the audacity was impressive. "You think I'm insecure because your son lied about my salary?" "I'm saying relationships are complicated." "No," I said quietly. "Lying is complicated. This is simple." She went silent. Then came the line that made something cold settle in my chest. "Well, Gavin has a lot to offer. Meaning, you should feel lucky. Meaning, know your place. Meaning, people like us are doing you a favor." I ended the call, blocked the number immediately. Then came day 6. I was at work reviewing placement paperwork when my supervisor knocked on my office door. "Got a second?" Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. Inside her office, she closed the door. "A woman called asking about your salary." I blinked. "What?" "She asked your exact title, compensation range, and employment history." My chest went cold. "Our admin refused information, obviously," she continued. "But do I need context?" I already knew. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. Cynthia. Because apparently humiliating me at dinner wasn't enough. Now she needed verification. Like my life was a background check. I explained everything. The lie, the dinner, the breakup, the phone call. My supervisor listened quietly. Then she sighed. "I've done this work 22 years, she said. "People will surprise you, usually in bad ways." I laughed weakly. "If they call again," she continued, "we document everything." That night I called Gavin. First time since the breakup. He answered instantly. "Natasha? Did your mother call my workplace?" Silence. Then, "What?" "Someone called asking about my salary." "My mom wouldn't do that." "Your mom got my number after we broke up. She was trying to help by investigating me." "You're overreacting." There it was, the phrase people use when accountability enters the room. "I'm done," I said quietly. "You're being dramatic." "No, I'm being finished." I hung up, and for the first time since all this started, I cried. Not because I missed him. Because 14 months suddenly felt fake. Because somewhere along the way, the woman helping foster kids became someone he thought needed rebranding. Because apparently, who I really was had never been enough. The next day, one of my foster teens looked at me during our session. "You look tired." "Long week." He nodded. "Yeah, me too." Then he asked, "Want to talk about it?" A 14-year-old, who'd spent half his life in temporary homes, offered me more empathy in 5 seconds than my boyfriend had in 14 months. After our meeting, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, just breathing, because somehow, the worst part wasn't losing Gavin. It was realizing how long I'd been standing beside someone who wanted a different version of me, and I still had no idea his father was about to change everything. After the workplace call, I went full no contact. Blocked Gavin, blocked Vanessa. Already had Cynthia blocked. Changed my number because I realized people who believe boundaries are optional rarely stop at one violation. My friend Chloe helped me box up Gavin's things from my apartment. 2 hoodies, running shoes, a coffee mug, he insisted, made coffee taste better, a phone charger. 14 months reduced to 1 cardboard box. I left it with the front desk staff at his apartment building. No note, no speech. Done. Or so I thought. 11 days after the dinner, I got an email. To my work email. Subject line: "You deserve an apology." My first instinct was delete. Instead, I opened it. It was from Daniel, Gavin's father. The message was long enough that I stopped working and closed my office door. He wrote that he had learned everything, not the polished version. Everything. The text Gavin sent before dinner. The pressure. The breakup. Vanessa calling me. Cynthia calling me. Someone contacting my workplace. Apparently, Gavin finally broke down after another argument at home and admitted all of it. Daniel wrote that what happened at dinner had bothered him immediately because something about his son's story never matched the woman sitting across from him. Then came the part that made me reread the email twice. He wrote, "When you told the truth at dinner, it was the first honest conversation I've seen at that table in years." I stared at that sentence for a long time. He continued. He said his family had become obsessed with appearances, careers, neighborhoods, titles, salaries, performance. He said somewhere along the way they stopped asking whether people were kind and only asked whether they were impressive. Then he apologized. Not, "Sorry you felt hurt." Not, "Sorry this happened." Just, "I'm sorry." He told me he confronted Cynthia about calling my workplace. Apparently she admitted it. Her defense? She wanted to know if I had lied. Daniel told her that contacting my employer crossed into harassment. According to him, the conversation became ugly. He also confronted Gavin, asked him one question. Why wasn't Natasha enough as herself? Gavin apparently didn't answer. Daniel wrote one more thing. Something I printed later. I spent 30 years in medicine. The people I respected most weren't the surgeons with the biggest houses. They were the people who showed up for vulnerable families every day despite low pay, high burnout, and almost no recognition. Social workers were always on that list. My eyes weren't dry anymore. Not because I missed Gavin. Because someone finally understood what hurt. It was never about money. It was about being edited. I replied simply, "Thank you. I appreciate your honesty. I wish your family well. But I need distance." He responded 30 minutes later. "Completely understand. Take care of yourself." Then came the fallout. Not directly. Through mutual acquaintances. Apparently Daniel confronted Cynthia repeatedly after that. He told her she had turned relationships into hiring decisions. He asked why kindness ranked below income, why compassion ranked below appearances. For the first time in years, people said he started pushing back. Cynthia apparently hated that, because when people are used to controlling the narrative, resistance feels like betrayal. Gavin texted my old number once before I changed it. Not an apology. Not accountability. His message: "Did you respond to my dad? Please don't make this worse." Worse, that word again. As if honesty was destruction. As if I caused the collapse instead of exposing cracks that were already there. I never answered. Changed my number the next morning. Life slowly became normal again. Not instantly. Breakups don't work that way. Sometimes I still reached for my phone before remembering there was nobody to text. Sometimes cooking dinner for one felt weird. Sometimes I missed having someone steal shredded cheese while I cooked. But missing someone and wanting them back aren't the same thing. Work stayed heavy. It's always heavy. A week later, the 14-year-old I mentioned finally got placed with a family wanting adoption. I drove him there myself. He was unusually quiet. When we pulled up, he looked at the house. "It has a porch," he said. "Yeah." He kept staring. "I always wanted a porch." The foster mom opened the door, smiled, said, "Welcome home." He looked back at me. I gave him a thumbs up. He walked inside. "That's the job. That's the $55,000. That's why I do it." Months later, I still keep Daniel's email printed inside my desk drawer, not framed, not displayed, just there, for days when the caseload is crushing, for days when court goes badly, for days when I wonder whether choosing this career was a mistake. Then I remember something. A family wanted me to be embarrassed by my work. A retired surgeon respected me because of it. And somewhere tonight, a kid who always wanted a porch is finally sleeping in a home that has one.